Hello, and welcome back to Pathfinder. My name is Philip, and I'm here to talk about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This is part of a series I'm producing covering the various deities in the Pathfinder role-playing game and its setting, the world of Golarion. Last time, I dipped my toe into the gods of Tian Xia with He Feng, the temperamental Tengu god of storms and the sea. This week, I've put together a special double-deity episode covering the Empress of Heaven and her mysterious consort, Shizuru and Tsukiyo. Before that, though, if you enjoy this video and want to hear more Pathfinder lore, consider subscribing or commenting below. With that out of the way, let's move on to the rundown. Shizuru and Tsukiyo are the sun and the moon, lovers separated by fate, death, and the cruel actions of others. It is impossible to discuss one without the other, and their relationship is one of the major building blocks of Tian history and culture. Shizuru is the Empress of Heaven, the beloved goddess of the sun and the ruler of Tian Xia's divine court. She is credited with the fertility of the land and the rivers of the continent, and takes center stage in the pantheons of peoples throughout the region. She is seen by nearly all peoples as kind, just, powerful, and a paragon of noble responsibility. Her teachings emphasize the importance of order and dedication to a craft, and she is credited with the development of honor codes which have bound both mortals and dragons for centuries. Her areas of concern are ancestors, order, honor, the sun, and growth. Outside of her dedicated clergy, she is mostly worshipped by samurai and those in positions of authority, especially in the nation of Minkai, which treats her as a patron goddess. Tsukiyo is in many ways contrasted with his partner. Where Shizuru is the sun, he is the Prince of the Moon, an ethereal resurrected deity of mysterious nature and withdrawn personality. While Shizuru is as constant and dependable as the sun, Tsukiyo is as formless and ever-changing as the phases of the moon. He represents the night and the changes which all mortals experience in life, from the slow changes of age to the sudden and sometimes violent changes of circumstance or tragedy. He takes special interest in outcasts and those ostracized by society, and teaches the importance of understanding and empathy. His areas of concern are jade, spirits, the moon, and outcasts. Outside of his dedicated clergy, he is worshipped primarily by those seen as outsiders, and by the samsarans of Tian Xia. Shizuru has two notable forms in which she presents herself to mortals. The first is her humanoid form, that of a noble human woman of Tian Min descent. She is clad in samurai armor and regalia, and carries a katana at her side. She is often depicted in this form with a sad expression on her face, reminding followers of the sense of loss she still feels for Tsukiyo. Her second form is that of an immense golden imperial dragon, crowned in a mantle of sunlight with shimmering scales and armored limbs. This is considered by many to be her truest form, and reminds her followers of the primordial connection she holds to all imperial dragons in Tian Xia. Despite his more changeable nature, Tsukiyo only presents himself in one form to his followers. He takes the shape of a tall, stoic human man of Tian Min descent, though his ethnicity is less important culturally than that of Shizuru. He wears his silver-white hair long and loosely gathered, and wears loose green and gold robes embroidered with lunar symbols. He often carries his moon-bladed spear of light in one hand, like a staff, and depictions rarely show him wielding it in anger. His face is marred by one blackened eye, but his expressions are typically soft and welcoming. It's possible that Tsukiyo also has a dragon form, but this has not been confirmed or depicted in art by Paizo, and followers see him most commonly as a human. Both Shizuru and Tsukiyo make their homes in heaven, where Shizuru bases her divine court. They live on Clarion, the third tier of Heaven's mountain. The Empress of Heaven rules from her Palace of the Eightfold Mirror, a sprawling complex of shrines surrounded by her own palatial residence. This facility is bathed in eternal sunshine and houses the entire bureaucracy of the divine court, from gardens and stables to the scribes responsible for tracking all the lineages in Tian Xia. Shizuru herself holds court at the very center, where she is guarded by mighty stone lion dogs and attended at all times by various courtiers, functionaries, and scribes. This palace is where she convenes the Heavenly Council to discuss important matters, though such events only occur rarely. On the other side of Heaven's mountain is the realm of Tsukiyo, the Grove of Green Shadows. This is a forested region of Clarion, covered in a dense jungle of trees with leaves made of jade. The canopy is so dense that the whole realm is bathed in perpetual green shade, forever obscuring the light of the sun. While many of Tsukiyo's faithful live here, the god himself is rarely at home. He avoids his small mithril and marble palace in favor of a life of travel, so he might better observe and understand the world. Shizuru is a goddess of order and society, and her teachings reflect this. Her holy text, the 15 Wisdoms, is a collection of 15 aphorisms attributed to the goddess herself, along with brief commentaries and explanations of each. These commentaries are believed to have been written by the goddess's most devout and loyal priests from ages long past. Collectively, the 15 Wisdoms preach the importance of a life lived with careful purpose and examination. Discipline of the self is a pillar of the faith, as is careful consideration. When actions must be taken, they should be decisive and deliberate, and followers are expected to commit themselves fully to whatever actions they take. To encourage followers to live an ordered life of careful and deliberate purpose, the Church of Shizuru is a rigidly structured hierarchical organization. Members of the clergy are given clearly defined positions with specific responsibilities to which they must attend. This structure teaches the value of order at a fundamental level, so even priests who venture from their temples might have an internal sense of order and structure to fall back upon in the wider world. Positions in the church vary significantly, from senior priests who instruct younger members to those who perform ceremonies for the public, to astronomers whose function is to track the sun and the moon and to determine the date of the next solar eclipse. Of particular note are the one-month monks, individuals assigned to a shrine in a remote or dangerous location which requires defending. These positions are intended as tests for those who seek to follow the Empress's more martial teachings, and last only one calendar month before the monks are called back and replaced. The training of Shizuran priests typically takes place at formal temples or monasteries, which can be located both in large cities and in remote locales. Many temples are built around training facilities, where followers can hone their chosen craft. Traditionally, this craft has manifested as swordplay, and temples also functioned as sword schools for the faith. Some temples might also contain practice facilities for other skills as well, ranging from scholarship to calligraphy to even farming, construction, or smithing. While not explicitly detailed in any text I could find, I like to imagine various specializations developing at Shizuran temples across Tian Xia based on the temple's history and location. Of particular note, in large cities, temples to Shizuru might be connected to temples of Tsukiyo. After Shizurans are properly trained, they are expected to put their skills to work for the greater good of the people. For this reason, many Shizuran priests are treated with respect and even reverence in much of Tian Xia. They are seen as wise guardians of a healthy society, and are called to for aid in times of crisis. While they aren't habitually violent, and are taught to treat violence as a tool to be employed only when absolutely necessary, the acts of service for which followers are best known are often martial in nature. They are seen as the defenders of both mortal communities and the natural world, and tales abound of Shizuran priests taking up arms in defense of each. Where Shizuru is a goddess of order and society, Tsukiyo is a god of contemplation and understanding. He teaches his followers to seek out individuals maligned or ostracized by society and provide them aid or encouragement so they might find peace and acceptance. Followers are encouraged to reflect or meditate in quiet isolation so they might achieve understanding about the world around them. The Prince of the Moon never judges others harshly and encourages his followers to do the same, ensuring that his church manifests on Golarion as a bastion of acceptance, tolerance, and inclusion. This is well exemplified by his holy text, Tears of Jade. It is a collection of 28 parables, one for each night of the lunar cycle. An important duty of priests is the maintenance of the text, which includes the sacred duties of translation, reinterpretation, and even adaptation. The goal of the Church is to make the text as inclusive and approachable as possible, meeting potential followers where they are, rather than forcing them to adapt. This has resulted in hundreds, if not thousands, of interpretations of the text, ranging from philosophical discussions in Tianmin to simple pamphlets in Taotian, to even text-free picture books for followers who lack the ability to read or focus on written words. Even Braille versions likely exist, though I'm not certain what Braille looks like on Golarion or in Tian Xia. Reflecting the god's emphasis on understanding and acceptance, the Church of Tsukiyo is very loosely organized. Priests tend to embrace wandering lifestyles, so formal hierarchies are rarely necessary. Followers will spend their days or nights traveling a loose circuit of communities and sacred sites, alternately offering aid to those in need, defending outcasts from persecution, or meditating in quiet isolation. The most common form of aid which followers provide is counseling. Tsukiyans are the first to listen to those in need of someone to talk to, and seek out those who are different or misunderstood so they might offer their services. These individuals might be members of ethnic minorities, or those with different philosophies or beliefs. Most commonly, however, these individuals are people who exhibit some form of neurodivergence. Tsukiyans are well suited to working with neurodivergent people, and consider it a sacred duty to understand the perspectives these people have. They champion these individuals and explain their conditions and outlooks to the person's community, explaining the situation in practical and religious terms. The goal of these priests is to encourage acceptance and accommodation for these individuals, and the most effective priests even cause communities to celebrate the different perspectives which these individuals can bring. On a personal note, thank you to the phenomenal writers at Paizo for respecting and championing the perspectives of neurodivergent people in the teachings of such a prominent and cool deity. This is the kind of stuff that helps make Golarion such an inclusive and welcoming place. Bravo! In addition to these duties, Tsukiyans are also responsible for the care of the dead. This includes the performance of funeral rites, but also the calming of restless spirits. Many Tsukiyans spend time on their travels passing through grave sites and cemeteries, seeking out signs of unrest and calming the unquiet dead. Unlike followers of Pharasma, however, Tsukiyans often view the undead with a large degree of pity and seek to peacefully set them back on their path to the afterlife. While they are willing to use violence to accomplish this goal if necessary, they are more likely to lean on diplomacy or other spiritual practices first. While shrines to Tsukiyo are more common than formal houses of worship, temples are known to exist in large towns or cities. They are commonly constructed adjacent to temples of Shizuru, with the Empress of Heaven's temple arranged on the side of the joint structure which receives the most sunlight. Temples to the Prince of the Moon are typically smaller than their sister temples, and contain many isolated areas where worshippers might find solitude and quiet. Courtyards are common in the structures as well, and serve to allow the faithful to stargaze at night. While each faith celebrates its own distinct holidays, solar eclipses are seen as times of special significance. These events are interpreted as the rare occasions when Shizuru and Tsukiyo are able to be reunited in heaven. During these periods, the two deities bask in their love for one another, and adherents of both faiths celebrate in joint ceremonies and occasionally festivals. These affairs are marked with a sense of reverence for both religions, but also a sense of loss. The chances for the Empress and her prince to be together are fleeting, and Tsukiyo must always travel on, seeking the dark places of the universe so he might offer comfort to those who live without Shizuru's light. On Golarion, the faiths of both Shizuru and Tsukiyo are centered almost exclusively in Tian Xia. Minkai serves as the center of Shizuru's faith, and the denizens of the region see her as a national deity. The Empress of Heaven is also held in especially high regard in Goka, Jinin, Jiha, Linvar, Songbai, and Jiahoi, as well as in the Forest of Spirits. Tsukiyo, meanwhile, is considered the patron of the Samsarans, and their nation of Jiha serves as the center of his faith. He is also widely worshipped in Minkai, Goka, Jinin, Tianjing, the Wall of Heaven, and the Forest of Spirits. In Goka, immense statues of both Shizuru and Tsukiyo watch over parts of the harbor. In addition to these regions, the faiths of both deities might hold minor sway all throughout Tian Xia, as anyone who worships any member of the Tian Xia pantheon typically also accepts Shizuru and Tsukiyo's positions of authority in the divine court. As you might expect for deities of such tremendous importance and prominence, Shizuru and Tsukiyo have legends dating back about as far as legends go, and the most popular Tian creation myth involves them heavily. Long ago, as far back as the Age of Monsters and before, the Great Beyond existed only as an immense dragon egg. The egg burst open, and all of creation spilled forth in a chaotic jumble of unbounded energy. During these days, the world was ruled by the terrifying kaiju and the mighty dragons, who reveled in the chaos of creation and exulted in their own might. But this was not to last, for soon Shizuru rose up to challenge the dragons, leading her fellow gods. The fight which followed was legendary, and the first mountains and valleys of the world were carved as a result. The dragons at first refused her authority, but as Shizuru stood steadfast in her convictions, her sword arm steady and unyielding, they soon became impressed. The dragons consented to rein in the worst of their destructive tendencies, submitting to Shizuru's will and her insistence that mortals be allowed to grow and flourish so they too might one day become great like the gods. With the dragons brought to heel, Shizuru and her lover Tsukiyo set to the work of ordering the sky. In those days, there were many suns in the sky, as a result of the chaos from which reality was birthed. The lovers drove away all but 2 of the suns, then took these lights into themselves, that they might be the 2 suns in the sky, blessing the land with long days and warm, fertile seasons. The Shizuru of this age was much as she is now, but unburdened by sorrow or grief. Her joy shone like the sun itself, and she was an inspiration to those around her. The Tsukiyo of those days, however, would be nigh unrecognizable to his modern followers. He was joyful and full of energy, always ready to charge into battle against evil, and totally and inescapably in love with his darling Empress. But such days were not to last. To Fumeyoshi, the brother of Tsukiyo, the light of Shizuru and Tsukiyo's love was harsh and blinding, and it pained him to look upon that which he could not have. While the Empress and her prince held sway over the day, Fumeyoshi was given the night. But in a sky with 2 suns, the night was a short and withered thing, and Fumeyoshi found it unimportant and unfulfilling. The seeds of envy began to sprout in Fumeyoshi's heart. Still, life went on, and during the Age of Dragons, Shizuru revealed her plans for the future of Tian Xia. She gathered the imperial dragons to her and revealed her commands. The dragons were to tame the land and prepare it for the arrival of the chosen mortals who would inherit the mantle of rulership. When the dragons inquired who these mortals might be, the Empress of Heaven revealed that humans, a species which was unknown in the region at the time, would arrive in 10,000 years. Surprised, but filled with a renewed sense of purpose, the dragons set themselves to this new task. They conquered the Yaoguai, who ruled the north, then worked secretly with the Nagas and Nagaji in the south to calm the restless kaiju. They practiced the arts of rulership for thousands of years, always waiting for the arrival of humanity. When the day finally came, the first humans arrived in Tian Xia. To the current occupants, it must have seemed like they appeared from nowhere, but in truth, they were simply migrants from far-off Saracen and Aslant. The dragons soon found the humans to be resourceful and capable, which renewed their faith in the promise of Shizuru. The dragons settled in for another 10,000 years of duty, this time not as stewards of the land, but as guardians to protect humans from the threats too big for them to handle on their own. But not all the dragons were content to just hand over the reins of power. Some dragons sought to disguise themselves as humans so they might seize power all over again and continue their rule. And the humans began to wonder, where was Shizuru? Why were these dragons allowed to break their oaths? Unfortunately, even gods can become distracted by tragedy. In the fledgling court of heaven, Fumeyoshi's envy had overgrown his heart. Fumeyoshi had grown fond of Shizuru, who woke him to perform his nightly duties as her sun set upon the world, and laid him down to rest when his nights came to an end. But these tender moments were fleeting and rare, and Tsukiyo, the second son, was allowed to bask in her love and affection for hours each day. Finally, the jealousy was too much. Fumeyoshi lured his brother behind a cloud, where they were hidden from Shizuru's light. He then struck his brother with all the force he could muster, killing him in a single blow. The Lord of Envy then drew the light from his brother's corpse and consumed it. He then buried his brother in a shallow grave and returned to the sky. Soon the clouds parted, and Shizuru looked with horror and despair upon the corpse of her beloved prince. She recognized immediately what Fumeyoshi had done, and stripped him of his rank and power, taking even his dominion of the night. Ye Jing, the Minister of Blood and the Punisher of the Gods, carried out Fumeyoshi's punishment. He took the Lord of Envy and buried him in Tsukiyo's grave, banishing him beneath the earth so he might never again bask in Shizuru's radiance. And there, in the depths, Fumeyoshi remains to this day, sating his hunger for light and love by consuming the life force of others. But what of Tsukiyo? After his death, Tsukiyo's body was left to rot in a shallow grave. His blood mixed with the soil and eventually with the tears of Shizuru, and these combined and coalesced into the first jade. The site of his grave is thought to have been in modern Jiha, due to the rich jade deposits found in the mountains of that land. When the prince's body crashed to the ground, it scared off all the animals in the region. Or perhaps I should say all but two. The first was a rabbit. This rabbit was well known for her cowardice, even among her fellow hares. But upon the death of the prince, she felt compelled to serve. She made her way to his ruined body and cleaned him, washing his face so he might be presentable. Then she took up a position at Tsukiyo's side and stood guard, overcoming her fear so the god might be protected even in death. She drove off thieves and scavengers until the breaking of the sun. But unfortunately, even this noble effort was imperfect. The second visitor to Tsukiyo's corpse was a common rat. This rodent recognized Tsukiyo's death as an opportunity and sought out his grave so she might feast upon his flesh. Through cunning, stealth, or plain luck, the rat made it unnoticed to Tsukiyo's corpse and ate from his flesh, absorbing a sliver of his divine power. And when Fumeyoshi was cast out of heaven and the darkness stripped from him, the rat was there to steal the darkness for herself. This rat then ascended to divinity, becoming Lao Shu Po, the rat mother of the night, patron goddess of thieves. But Shizuru, for all her devotion to the natural order, was not prepared to lose her love to death just yet. She called out for Qizhong, the master of medicine, and begged him to work his craft. Qizhong complied, using all of his knowledge and skill to conquer even death itself. And with that, Tsukiyo was restored to life. Shizuru rejoiced in the return of her lost love, but her celebration was short-lived. for the man who came back to her was not the same as the man who had been taken away. Tsukiyo was forever changed. His light, once as bright and dependable as the sun, was diminished, and waxed and waned as the moon. His boundless joy and enthusiasm was gone, replaced with a tendency toward quiet, reserved contemplation. Worst of all, the prince no longer saw himself as a creature of the bright day. Now he was a being of the night, and his duty was to patrol the darkness, seeking those who the light of day could not find. He took his place in the night sky, becoming not a second sun, but a moon. Shizuru was heartbroken. The love she felt for Tsukiyo remained, but this man who came back was not the Tsukiyo she remembered. She loved this new person with all her heart, but mourned the new nature of the universe which required them to be apart. And deep down she feared that underneath his quiet exterior, Tsukiyo hated her for bringing him back as this changed and foreign being. But these fears were unfounded, for Tsukiyo still loved Shizuru as much as he ever had. Though he was forever changed by his death, that love which formed the core of his very being remained. And on the first solar eclipse after his resurrection, Tsukiyo returned to heaven to be with his beloved Empress. Their love surged with newfound strength, and they were overcome with each other's presence. But this glorious reunion would only last for a moment. As the moon moved out of the way of the sun, Tsukiyo made his exit from heaven. Though Shizuru did not understand her prince's new nature, she respected his need to be true to it and leave, and Tsukiyo loved her all the more for that. Meanwhile, back on Galarian, everything was going to shit. Okay, I am exaggerating, but only a little bit. Near the end of the Age of Dragons, the Imperial Dragons whom Shizuru had assigned to guard the world in anticipation of the rise of humanity had grown impatient. Many of their number became increasingly directly involved in the management of their territories, and more than a few took on the roles of emperors and warlords. As the dragons went to war, the land itself became a victim of their awesome might, as fields were flooded, forests uprooted, and mountains razed and leveled in titanic battles. This all finally ended with the Earthfall calamity and the coming of the Age of Ashes. In Tian Xia, the Earthfall calamity was experienced as a less direct disaster. The sky darkened with ash, and tidal waves from the other side of the planet raised the sea levels, which sank islands and land bridges alike beneath the waves for all time. Humans were driven to the point of near extinction, and the dragons ceased their bickering in the face of such tumult and turmoil. This began the period of dragons adopting the guises of humans, not to rule, but to guide humanity to its own successes, a tradition which remains popular even in the Age of Lost Omens. The Age of Ascendancy began with the establishment of Yi Jing, an empire of legend which lasted for thousands of years. Yi Jing is a topic all its own, especially with the revelations presented in the Tian Xia World Guide, but this video is already too long, and I'm going to jump to the relevant bits. In 2600 IC, Shizuru elected to intervene in the fate of Tian Xia in her most direct method yet. Far to the northeast, beyond the borders of Yixing, the land which would become Minkai had need of leadership. The Empress of Heaven collected 5 virtuous families, the Amatatsu, the Higashiyama, the Shojinawa, the Sugimatsu, and the Teikoku, and bestowed upon them the blessing of heaven, signaling their divine right to rule. Within 12 years of Shizuru's blessing, the Teikoku clan established their own shogunate, which dominated the land which would one day become Minkai. The Teikoku family was honorable and just for centuries, but their benevolence slowly gave way to corruption and greed, and by the year 6000 IC, the kindling of revolution had been put in place. In 6116 IC, the legendary samurai Setsuna Kuga, whom history would dub the perfect swordswoman, led her armies against the Teikoku, culminating in a final victory for the revolutionaries after the Battle of the 8 Bridges. 3 years later, a new empire named Minkai was formed. The 5 ruling families who had been blessed by Shizuru, including the Teikoku, were each presented with magical artifacts called the Imperial Seals. These seals were manifestations of Shizuru's own divine mandate, and had the ability to determine the legitimacy of heirs of their respective families. The seals could also protect these heirs from harm, and could bless them with vague visions of the past, present, and future. Upon the establishment of the empire, a new emperor was chosen to rule from among the 5 noble families. To my knowledge, the order of succession has not been detailed by Paizo, though all emperors of Minkai have claimed to be direct descendants of Shizuru and Tsukiyo. The legitimacy of this claim seems dubious to me, as I don't know of any children of the 2 deities outside of one I will mention later. More likely, this might be an exaggeration of Shizuru's divine mandate regarding the emperor's divine right to rule. To bless the foundation of the empire, Tsukiyo prepared a gift for his beloved wife. The Prince of the Moon formed the Jade Throne, an artifact of incredible power, which has never been mechanically detailed by Paizo. The Jade Throne would serve as the seat of power for the rulers of Minkai, and was further imbued with a powerful defense mechanism. All those who would seek to sit upon the throne in defiance of Shizuru's divine mandate would be struck down by the very might of the gods. While the history of Minkai would continue on from this point, this largely concludes the direct involvement of Shizuru and Tsukiyo in the major events in the nation's history. As the Empress of Heaven, Shizuru is highly respected by many deities throughout the Great Beyond. She views the other deities of the Tian Xia pantheon as her subjects, but is bound by both honor and the nature of her position to respect the authority of each other deity over their areas of concern. In return, the deities in this pantheon respect her position as the head of the pantheon. She rarely exerts her power, except on the rare occasion when she is compelled to call the divine court to attend her in heaven. Shizuru has one family member, her half-brother, General Suzumu. While both deities are considered patrons of samurai, the nature of their patronage is wildly different. The Empress of Heaven encourages her warriors to live up to the noble ideals of warrior poets, who only ever raise their weapons in defense of justice. By contrast, General Suzumu, the Black Daimyo, encourages his followers to actively seek glory in battle. Followers of the general defend neither order nor the innocent, and only defend their own possessions or their own glory and honor. Interestingly, the parents of Shizuru and General Suzumu are unknown, and they very well might have simply manifested on their own as half-siblings without well-defined or distinct parental entities. As a goddess of stable societies, Shizuru gets along well with Abadar. The pair of them work together to encourage the healthy growth of cities and trade, as well as the security of the countryside. Shizuru's emphasis on the protection of both nature and society likely causes her to temper Abadar's tendency to encourage ongoing growth and expansion in his communities. Shizuru is also on good terms with Shellen as a deity of love and art. Shellen's interest in love resonates with Shizuru's own lost love in Tsukiyo, and the Lady of Chrysanthemums, as Shellen is dubbed in Tian Xia, feels tremendous sympathy for the Empress of Heaven. Additionally, Shizuru recognizes the importance of love, family, and art to healthy societies, and so highly respects Shellen and her domains. Shizuru is eternally grateful to Chi-Jon for his resurrection of Tsukiyo, and also recognizes the importance of medicine to successful societies. For these reasons, the two deities remain allies. This alliance is further bolstered by their shared interest in rulership, though the Master of Medicine's interest is more academic and philosophical in nature. Irori also gets along well with Shizuru, as both deities encourage their followers to develop and refine their chosen skills. While Irori takes a firmer view on the degree of perfection demanded of his followers, both deities recognize the importance of earnest effort and the development of personal skill and strength. Finally, Shizuru has a good relationship with Iomide. with the obvious parallels, at least in pop culture, between knights and samurai, and the positions of each of the two goddesses as the patrons of such warrior castes, there is a huge degree of overlap between them. Both emphasize the importance of meticulous training, an ordered life, and the protection of the innocent. As the elder of the two goddesses, Shizuru views Iyomide as a younger cousin, and takes inspiration from the younger knight's boundless enthusiasm. Tsukiyo's changing and ethereal nature makes it difficult for other deities to befriend him. That said, he is widely respected, and considered a voice of wisdom worthy of attention and consideration by all but the most heedless deities. As the Prince of the Moon, Tsukiyo holds some prominence in the heavenly court. While his duties are less rigid or formal than Shizuru's, he still performs what is required of him. He is willing to provide counsel to most deities if they are in need, and many accept him willingly as an honored guest should he arrive on their doorstep. Those deities who actively seek him out, however, often find him unapproachable, or might even drive him away with their eagerness. One reason why Tsukiyo is considered so wise is his experience with death. Tsukiyo is one of the only deities who has died and returned from the dead. This provides him with insight into what lies beyond death, knowledge which many gods crave. In addition to the general respect he receives from most deities, Tsukiyo also maintains a few friendships and enmities. The Prince of the Moon gets along well with Pharasma, in no small part because he encourages his followers to help the dead find rest. Priests of both deities frequently work together in the management of the undead in Tian Xia. Interestingly, it is unclear in the lore if Pharasma judged Tsukiyo's soul upon his death, or if he was resurrected before this could occur. Tsukiyo also maintains a friendship with Nalinivati, the patron goddess of the Nagas and Nagaji. Nalinivati's intimate knowledge of sorcery makes her fascinating to Tsukiyo, who always seeks new forms of understanding. This goes both ways, however, as Nalinivati herself is entranced by the many perspectives which Tsukiyo can bring to her attention. Of course, Tsukiyo's greatest rival and most despised adversary is Fumeyoshi, the treacherous brother who slew him. While Fumeyoshi's envy and hatred continues to fester and grow, the Prince of the Moon's own feelings are more complex. He is still angry at his brother for the betrayal which took his life, but he pities the wretched creature which the Lord of Envy has become. Finally, Tsukiyo and Shizuru both have a complex relationship with a figure known only as the Dusk Ronin. The Dusk Ronin is the daughter of Shizuru and Tsukiyo, and is their only known child. She once resided in the heavenly court with her mother, but grew angry with her father over the years, as she saw the pain his absence caused to her beloved mother. She confronted Tsukiyo once, and grew so angry that she struck him. Shizuru was outraged at this behavior, and banished her daughter from the heavenly court. In penance, the Dusk Ronin wanders the multiverse to this day. She loves both her parents deeply, and seeks to atone for her impetuousness by answering the prayers of followers of both deities. She spends a great deal of time with priests and followers of Tsukiyo specifically, as she wants nothing more than to understand her father and those who follow his teachings. For players interested in playing characters who follow Shizuru, here are a few useful details. For those using the alignment rules, Shizuru is a lawful good deity, and will accept clerics of that alignment, plus neutral good and lawful neutral alignments. Her edicts are to practice your chosen skill every day, to honor your ancestors, and to protect nature and society from corruption and destruction. Interestingly, with the publication of the Lost Omens Tian Xia World Guide, her edict to practice with a weapon every day was expanded to include all chosen skills, not just weaponscraft. I expect this is a retcon as opposed to an in-universe change, but I could be wrong. Conversely, to abandon a companion in need, to harm the innocent, to parley with truce breakers, to separate lovers, or to cast an unholy spell are all anathema to Shizuru. And yes, that is a lot of anathema. Shizuru is a benevolent but strict mistress. She also formally held the act of dishonoring yourself as anathema, but that appears to have been expanded into the other new anathema for clarity. Clerics of Shizuru who perform a sanctification can choose holy. The Empress of Heaven has the domains of duty, perfection, sun, and vigil, though she also has the alternate domain of sorrow. Her holy symbol is a katana in front of a golden sun. I haven't found an official listing for Shizuru's sacred colors, but they appear to be gold and either orange or red. Shizuru is commonly depicted in these colors, and they are common among her followers. Devout followers who take a militaristic approach to their faith likely follow Shizuru's fashion sensibilities and dress in traditional samurai attire. This might include variations on and evolutions of the traditional yoroi for those favoring heavier armor. When not wearing armor, a traditional hakama made from golden silk, or the regional equivalent outside of Minkai, would be the most common outfit among followers, particularly in formal settings. Though followers will likely dress in clean and well-maintained clothing, gaudy or impractically expensive clothing might be seen as a sign of corruption or greed, except on ceremonial occasions. Lay followers, or even devout followers outside of formal settings, will tend toward well-made but practical clothing. Outside of holy symbols, which might present as a simple side sword, followers might not show any other displays of their faith. I do, however, want to make special mention of the decorative headscarves produced in Minkai. Many towns in Minkai each produce a unique scarf design, and citizens wear them as a sign of identification and pride. Travelers to the region might make a habit of collecting these scarves as souvenirs, and so they might be a notable accessory for many Shizurans. Shizuru's favored weapon is, of course, the katana, instantly making her popular with edgy 12-year-olds everywhere, as well as people like me who never really grew out of that phase. In addition to this weapon and variations on it, followers might elect to wield other weapons traditionally associated with the samurai, including the naginata, the wakizashi, or the long or short bows. Outside of Minkai and its associated Japanese influence, followers will likely wield spears, bows, long swords, or short swords, or whatever weapons happen to be the local equivalent. Advanced weapons, or weapons of complicated design, will likely be uncommon among followers, unless they have an ancestral connection to said weapon. Regardless of the weapon chosen, Shizurans will always maintain their chosen armaments with religious devotion, keeping them in pristine condition. This practice even extends to non-militant followers, who will maintain the tools of their chosen trade with the same fervent zeal. Shizuru's favored animal is the carp, instantly reminding me and those of my generation of Magikarp and its eternal struggle to evolve into Gyarados, a story which is itself reminiscent of some of Shizuru's teachings. Other animals associated with leadership or samurai, such as hounds, horses, or the mythical lion dogs, might be associated with Shizuru's followers as well. Finally, the rooster is often seen as a lesser herald of Shizuru, as roosters are known to crow for the coming of the sun, and thus announce Shizuru's return at the end of the night. Because of Shizuru's emphasis on both martial and non-martial skills, clerics of both the cloistered and war priest doctrines are prominent. War priest clerics tend to practice swordplay as an expression of their faith, while cloistered clerics might gravitate towards poetry or calligraphy, among other studies. Among the martial classes, monks, fighters, and champions will fit thematically into the Shizuran faith, as might the precision ranger or certain subclasses of the magus. Among the spellcasting classes, those which tend toward careful study and practice, like the wizard, will likely take well to Shizuru's teachings, but druids who seek to balance nature and the civilized world, or spontaneous casters with a connection to dragons, such as dragon bloodline sorcerers or dragon eidolon summoners, might fit nicely as well. Humans of the Tian Min ethnicity are the most common among followers of Shizuru, due to their prominence of the ancestral groups in Minkai. Other human ethnicities found in Minkai, Goka, Linvar, Songbai, and Zhahoi might be found among the faithful as well. Non-human ancestries, which might have exposure to her faith, include the elves of Jinin, the Kitsune and Tengu of Songbai, the Samsarans of Jiha, and the myriad ancestries of Minkai and the Forest of Spirits. Among the versatile heritages, the Ayuvarin from Jinin might be exposed to the faith, as might various planar scions, especially those with a connection to heaven. I also want to make special mention of the Dragon Blood heritage from Player Core 2, which has an obvious thematic connection to Shizuru and the Imperial Dragons who pay her fealty. Devout followers of Shizuru are disciplined individuals with a commitment to a just and ordered world. They maintain a distance between themselves and others, but this is merely to avoid attachments to those who might bring disorder, so they might better serve the world and their goddess. They devote themselves to at least one skill which they practice with devotion until they achieve mastery, then seek to put that skill to use trying to make the world a better place. While they do not seek battle or personal glory, Shizurans are always willing to stand up in the face of injustice or evil, and their unwavering bravery regularly earns them the respect of those around them. They might be found in both cities and the countryside, staffing large temples, tending isolated shrines, or even wandering the land on a quest. For further inspiration, the Empress of Heaven's Paladin Code from 1st edition does an excellent job of detailing the oaths a more militant follower might swear. For players interested in playing characters who follow Tsukiyo, here are a few useful details. For those using the alignment rules, Tsukiyo is a lawful good deity, but will accept clerics of any good alignment, plus lawful neutral and true neutral alignments. His edicts are to provide aid and counsel without judgment to those who seek help, to help the dead find their rest, and to amplify the speech of the powerless and demonized, or to speak for them when necessary. Conversely, to harm another person out of envy, to force aid on those who do not want it, to inflict harmful mental effects on others as punishment, to knowingly hurt the innocent, or to commit murder are all anathema to Tsukiyo. Once again, lots of anathema for followers to watch out for. Clerics of Tsukiyo who perform a sanctification can choose holy. His domains are delirium, moon, repose, and soul, though he has the alternate domain of change as well. His holy symbol is a crescent moon made of jade. While I haven't found official listings for Tsukiyo's sacred colors, I assume they are gold and jade green. Tsukiyo commonly wears these colors, and also has an affiliation for silver and white, as representations of the light of the moon. Followers commonly wear loose-fitting robes of a flowing design, most commonly dyed jade green and embroidered with patterns depicting the phases of the moon. Prayer beads are common accessories among the faithful. There is no consistent formal raiment among the faithful, leaving individual priests and followers to select their own clothing. This means that while one priest's clothes might tend toward the formal and ceremonial, another's might be simplistic and highly practical. One common trend among priests, in addition to color, is the tendency for followers to alter their attire slightly over the course of a month to align with and evoke thoughts of the phases of the moon. The Prince of the Moon's favorite weapon is the spear, though back in 1st edition it was the long spear. Tsukiyo's own spear is of a non-traditional design, tipped with a crescent moon-shaped blade. Such a design might be found among his followers, but does not appear to be the norm. As Tsukiyo's faith emphasizes the importance of understanding and patience, many followers might use their spear more frequently as a walking stick or staff. For this reason, staves or similar weapons might also be common. Tsukiyo's favorite animal is the hare, due to the rabbit which defended his body while he was dead. Due to his association with the night, nocturnal animals like owls, certain cats, or even bats might be appropriate choices for familiars or companions as well. Similarly, animals associated with death, like ravens, might also have a place among the faithful. The Church of Tsukiyo likely favors more cloistered clerics than war priests, due to the relatively non-violent approach the faith takes. Similarly, Redeemer champions are likely more common than paladins. Classes which place a special emphasis on wisdom to aid in a follower's ability to understand those they help will fit in well with the faith of Tsukiyo. Similarly, characters who understand the art of diplomacy and linguistics might be better able to work with those in need of counseling, or with the dead or dying to aid them in passing on. To these ends, outwit rangers, some investigators or monks, bards, and animists would all be good fits for the faith. Followers who seek to travel the natural world might be rangers or druids. Additionally, in their capacity as managers of the dead, the hallowed necromancer or the exorcist archetypes are good picks as well. In addition to humans of Tian-Min ethnicity in Min-Kai, humans of any ethnicity in Goka, Tianjing, the Wall of Heaven, and Ji-Ha are all commonly found among his faith. Other denizens of these lands, including Tengu, Kitsune, and Yaoguai, among others, are found among his faithful as well, as are the elves of Jinnen. I should also make special mention of the Samsarans. This ancestry has a special connection to Tsukiyo's faith, as many Samsarans believe that the Prince of the Moon is the patron of their people, and that their cycle of reincarnation is a sign from the god himself that they must seek enlightenment. The ancestral home of the Samsarans, Ji-Ha, is a mountainous region rich in jade, which the residents claim derives from the blood of Tsukiyo mixed with the tears of Shizuru. In Ji-Ha, the calendar is measured by the phases of the moon, due in part to the region's long nights, and in part to the prominence of Tsukiyo's faith. The Prince of the Moon's friendship with Nalinivati also draws some Nagas, and presumably Nagaji, to his faith as well. Devout followers of Tsukiyo spend their lives seeking to understand those who are different. They seek to help those in need by offering counsel, bringing new perspectives to old problems, and advocating for solutions which benefit all parties. While they tend toward peaceful and diplomatic solutions, they are unafraid to take up arms in defense of the innocent and downtrodden. They are similarly willing to use violence to calm the unquiet dead, though, again, understanding and empathy are their preferred tools. They often lead migratory lives, traveling between various cities or settlements in a region and meditating in places of isolation and tranquility. They can often be found helping those who are ostracized, either because they are cultural outsiders or because they don't fit into society. For GMs looking to integrate Shizuru and Tsukiyo and their followers into a campaign, here are some ideas. Major spoilers for the Jade Regent AP at the end of this section. Shizuru's herald is Shinonome, a celestial sky dragon who has served her for millennia. Shinonome was the servant who gathered the imperial dragons at the beginning of the Age of Dragons, so they might hear Shizuru's declarations about the coming of humanity. In addition to Shinonome, the Empress of Heaven is served by the Eyes of the Sun, a pair of celestial lion dogs with a love of pranks and mischief. Followers who please Shizuru might witness a flash of golden sunlight glimmering in their blades or tools, or might witness the calligraphic character for dragon forming in pooling liquids. By contrast, those who displease her might experience their weapons, armor, or tools suddenly rusting or turning dull. Tsukiyo's herald is the Lady of the Green Crescent, the hare who remained by Tsukiyo's corpse after his death, whom he raised to the status of an Emperor Kirin and blessed with a body of jade. The Lady of the Green Crescent and her children make a habit of traveling with those who are suffering, so they might have company in their darkest moments. Those who please Tsukiyo might find themselves blessed with a good night's sleep, or a sense of mental fortitude. Those who offend the Prince of the Moon might find their ability to see in darkness lessened or removed entirely, or might find themselves becoming lost in the wilderness at night. In Tian Xia, the nations of Min-Kai and Ji-Ha have the strongest connections to Shizuru and Tsukiyo respectively. That said, the nation of Chuye also has a strong connection to their shared history. After the death of Tsukiyo, Fumeyoshi stole his brother's dying breath and hid it away in a shrine deep within the Chuyokai forest. The Jade Breath blessed Fumeyoshi with the ability to transform kami into grave kami, who violently protect burial sites from all visitors. These grave kami haunt the Chuyokai forest to this day, and can only be temporarily appeased with offerings of burnt prayers or paper money. In modern times, Chuye is ruled by the Oni warlord Shogun Tsuneni. He and his fellow Oni rule over the other inhabitants of the land as a violent and repressive ruling class. They are opposed by Mizuki Hikari, a rebel group based in the Chuyokai forest which is gaining popularity. Among these rebels, a commander named Duen Fuyang has recently converted to the worship of Fumeyoshi, and the Dark God has promised her the might necessary to throw off the Oni overlords. What Duen Fuyang doesn't understand is that the Lord of Envy only intends to fulfill his bargain by slaughtering the humans of Chuye and raising them as an undead army. Followers of either Shizuru or Tsukiyo would almost certainly find compelling motivations in this region. Both religions would be opposed to the actions of Fumeyoshi, and members of each could undertake missions in the Chuyokai forest to undermine the actions of his followers. At the same time, Shizuruans and Tsukiyans would both readily oppose the Oni of Chuye and would fight fiercely to defend the underclasses in the region. In Ji-ha, the political tension between the Samsaran inhabitants of the north and the other humanoids of the south has been ratcheting up in recent years. The enclaves of Samsarans are pushing for a policy of isolation, driven by their desire to protect themselves from outsiders who seek to hunt the Samsarans down for the healing powers of their blood. In the south, large populations of humans are hoping for greater interaction and trade with neighboring nations to bring new levels of wealth and prosperity to the region. They also seek to integrate the Samsarans and humans of Ji-ha more closely, forcing the two groups to work together for the common good of the nation. The government of Ji-ha is split on the issue, with the elected Gyalto Tulku supporting open trade, and the unelected child sage Tian Xia advocating for isolationism. The Church of Tsukiyo is incredibly important in the region, as he is considered the patron deity of the Samsarans. Members of the faith could set themselves to the task of negotiating a compromise between the two factions. They would need to act quickly, however, as Tian Xia is currently planning a coup to overthrow his elected opposition and install himself as a theocratic dictator. In Minkai, the Ondori era has begun. This era was kicked off with the overthrow of the Jade Regent in 7211 AR, and the subsequent ascension of Ameko Amaterasu, once known in Sandpoint as Ameko Kaijitsu, to the throne. Empress Ameko has kicked off the Ondori Reformation, a process of cultural shift and government reform which seeks to rapidly modernize Minkai and unshackle it from the troubling aspects of the Jade Regent's reign. The Ondori era is named for the Ondori, the rooster, whose crow heralds the coming of the sun and the coming of times of great change. The reforms the Empress has begun have been swift and decisive, stripping power from the noble and samurai classes and instituting meritocratic standards for all positions in the government. This sudden shift has made older generations in particular nervous, and many question the Empress's disregard for tradition. The Church of Shizuru was, and still is, nearly a state religion, but with the stripping of power from the samurai, who were in many cases the champions of the faith, the church is in crisis. While the Empress doubtless has the blessings of heaven on her side, many prominent church members find her policies distasteful, if not outright sacrilegious. Many samurai have fled the nation to gather their power base in foreign lands before seeking their revenge. A campaign in Minkai could easily involve the fractures within the Shizuran Church needing to be healed before the Ondori reforms can be fully implemented. Finally, I think it might be fascinating to center a story around the character of the Dusk Ronin. The daughter of Shizuru and Tsukiyo is a fascinating character, and as a star archon, she is strong enough to be out of reach of most PCs mechanically, but weak enough to be encountered in a campaign and help the PCs against powerful endgame threats. This is a rare trait among beings who participate in deific tales in Pathfinder, and therefore seems like a great opportunity for storytelling. The Dusk Ronin might contact PCs to aid her in quests or tasks which advance the goals of her parents, or protect faithful Shizurans or Tsukiyans around Tian Xia. Interestingly, the Dusk Ronin might employ tactics or behaviors which her parents might condemn, as her disagreements with her parents are a key aspect of her character. Stories which involve this character might be enriched by showing growth on her part, or a misguided eagerness on her part to vanquish her parents' enemies. So, that's it. That's Shizuru and Tsukiyo, the sun and moon of the Tian pantheon. While they might not technically be members of the Core 20, they hold a tremendous amount of influence in a region which, frankly, dwarfs the Inner Sea region in scale. Their relationship presents an incredibly human tale with which NPCs, PCs, and even players themselves can connect, and goes a long way toward humanizing the idea of deities in a fictional setting. I love what Paizo has done with their story, and I look forward to seeing where it goes in the future. Up next, I'll be releasing my final normal video for the year. December is going to be a bit different here at Pathfinder, but I'm not quite there yet. I've decided to close out my coverage of Tian Xia, for the time being, with a look at one of the adventure paths set in that region. Up next is my video player's guide for Season of Ghosts, one of the best received Paizo APs in all of 2nd edition. For now, though, I am off to commune with Erastil by freezing in a deer stand all weekend. May the Elk Father guide my aim. See you next time.